Hello, my name is Robin Bebo. I'm a guitar player, and I trying something a little different on my channel now. I'm gonna kind of talk a little bit, give some kind of background on that guitar you just saw earlier and why it's so special and important to me, and just kind of the person behind it, where I got it from. Talking about Gary Mothershed, of course. Gary was a really good family friend of mine personally as well. I'd known Gary for years back in Texas, back when I played with Bebo in a band with my brother, and Gary would frequently, really good supporter of the local music scene and just musician all around and music lover all around. And I kind of ended up meeting Gary through Bebo and through playing music in East Texas and DFW area. And Gary was just one of the kindest people you'd ever run into, and just such a big heart, and such a really just a musician's musician too. He just knew so much about guitars and music, and really someone good to have in your back corner to talk to and to talk about music, talk about guitar playing. I had kind of met Gary a few times at various shows at Clicks and in Tyler, Texas, and the first time I had actually played the Corsa Les Paul was when I was buying my Gibson Explorer off of him. Gary was kind of selling some guitars from his personal collection, and I came by, and it was a really fun time. This was probably back in 2021, maybe 2019 actually. Was this 2019? But I went by his house, and we just all, my dad was there, and we would talk and just play guitars over and over, and just like, it was, as a guitar player, it was like the most fun thing you could possibly do, pretty much, is just sit and play guitars and talk about just, guitars that are old, a lot of which are older than I am, and just the history behind them, and what incredible instruments he had. And I ended up buying that Gibson Explorer, and I played the Corsa, and I remember really loving that Corsa too. But I ended up, I wanted the Gibson Explorer was so cool, and it was such a unique shape, so I was like, oh, I'm gonna go with the Gibson. So I played with the Gibson quite a bit around East Texas. Played a Pink Floyd tribute show where I felt so terrible because Gary was in the crowd, and the second song of the set comes up, and my strap lock just falls out of the guitar, and the headstock hit the stage. And I felt so embarrassed because I was like, that was my first show playing that guitar, and Gary was in the crowd, and I was like, oh my God, his baby, he just sold it to me, and I just, nearly destroyed it on stage accidentally. But I remember he was just so like gracious and so kind, and he was like, don't worry about it at all. And that made me feel so much better, because I really wanted to, it's my goal to always make sure that those instruments are treated well and treated properly, and not, not destroyed on stage. That's the problem with Gibsons. They're very heavy guitars. So recently, 2024, last year, Gary passed away after complications with hearing loss that ended up developing into dementia and memory loss. And last year was just a rough year in general, and hearing about that was just really devastating, and just felt for his family, for Rhonda, for just everyone who knew Gary, everyone whose life has been touched by Gary. And his wife Rhonda ended up saying she didn't want to sell the Corsa Les Paul because it was just too special. It's a custom made guitar built to Gary's specifications, so it's very special, very personal instrument, so she very, very graciously decided, hey, I want you to have it. And I was just kind of like flabbergasted, because I'm like, oh my God, I mean, what a beautiful instrument. And it's ironic for me because I had always kind of wanted a custom built guitar at some point. And the ironic thing is that I ended up getting one in that guitar, but it's so special to me because it's built exactly to what Gary's specs are. So in many ways, it's his guitar. It's so personal to him. And every time I play it, I think about him and think about, who he was as a person, who he was as a musician. Gary's an amazing person. He, served in the armed forces as well, served this country. It's just kind of like overwhelming at times to talk about, but, I wanted to make sure that I was the kind of person that could take care of this instrument, to make sure it has a good home, and most importantly, to make sure it gets played, because it's such an incredible instrument, in terms of it's not made to be displayed for a collector. It has such a rich sound that it really is meant to be played, and that it's my goal, as its kind of steward now, is to make sure it gets treated well, but also that it gets played well too. So in a second, I'm gonna grab the guitar here, and we're gonna maybe check out some of the sounds and kind of the things that make it really unique. All right, so here's the guitar. It might be hard for you to see from here, but it's whatever I can show you on the camera is not gonna do it full justice. But it's beautiful gold top. It's the craziest thing. The first thing I noticed about this guitar is it's really, if you've played a Les Paul before, they're very heavy. This one is chambered, so it's actually like really light. You can really maneuver around with it in a way that you couldn't like a Gibson Les Paul, like an old school one. This in particular is built by the guitar maker Larry Corsa, who, until I'd played this guitar, I didn't know much about. But Larry Corsa builds amazing instruments. He kind of, these Les Pauls are called the Manalishi, and he really kind of builds them based on the old 1959 kind of Gibson Les Pauls that like Peter Green from Fleetwood Mac would use. You can see kind of the hand signature of Larry Corsa back there, and it's number 84. So this is the 84th Corsa Manalishi built. And it was built back in 2015, which was the same year I graduated high school. So it's another kind of little connection I have with this instrument that makes it feel personal. And the unique thing about him is the pickups are wired out of phase. So when you put the pickup in the middle selector position, it gives this really like quacky, bluesy, out of phase sound that I really like. Let me show you real quick. It also has a really cool like push-pull pot here, which is sometimes referred to on a Les Paul as like the Jimmy Page mod, which makes this great for like Led Zeppelin, more bluesy kind of sounding stuff. So yeah, with it being kind of Thanksgiving and Gary's memorial was back in last month in October, and I was really bummed out I didn't get to go because I was busy with wedding gigs and I have a musical coming up, and I wasn't able to take the time to come down to Texas. But I was hoping that I could at least record this as like a way of just showing what kind of connection and impact that Gary had on my life. As a musician, as a supporter of local music, and just as a person, and just how special he was, and just for him to know, and for Rhonda to know, that I hope that I can take good care of his instruments and his legacy too, and hope that I can kind of spread, the kind of joy of his legacy and who he was as a person, as a musician. So that, whenever someone else sees this guitar, they'll kind of know that story too, and keeping that memory alive. So I'm also going to put a couple links in the description for just to kind of donate for veterans causes, Alzheimer's, dementia, hearing loss. These are all things that affected Gary. So if you feel so inclined, I'll put some links in the description to donate to some good causes. And that being said, I'll kind of end this video playing a little bit more on this guitar and just kind of showing how cool of an instrument it is. And just want to remember Gary, and we love you, and we just thank you for you and Rhonda for just making such an impact on my life and on my musical journey. And that means so much to me, and I can't really put it into words how much it means to me. So thank you. Also wanted to give a quick shout out to Now You Shred backing tracks for the track that you heard me play over earlier, and the track you're going to hear me play over in a second. Makes really cool, easy to play along to backing tracks, so definitely check them out. Give them a like and a subscribe, and feel free to do the same on my channel if you feel so inclined. Thank you.